The door was already open. That was the thing nobody tells you about the worst moments of your life. They don't always announce themselves. There's no dramatic music, no warning. Sometimes the door is just open, and you walk through it. Zara's keys were still in her hand when she stopped moving. The apartment smelled like her perfume. The good one, the one she only wore on special occasions. The one she kept on the left side of the bathroom shelf. Her shelf. She didn't understand what she was seeing at first. The human brain does that, doctors say. It protects you for a few seconds before it lets the truth in. So for 3, maybe 4 heartbeats, Zara Osei just stood there in the doorway of her own bedroom, keys digging into her palm, seeing everything and understanding nothing. Then her brain let it in. Khaled, her mother, together. The room was warm. The curtains she had picked out, cream with thin gold threading, were half drawn. Afternoon light cut across the bed in long, lazy strips. Everything looked almost peaceful, like a painting, like something out of a life that wasn't hers. Neither of them saw her immediately. That made it worse somehow. She had a full, horrible moment to just look, to see the way her mother's hand rested on his arm, the way he turned toward Demi with a kind of ease that Zara recognized. She had seen that ease before. She thought it belonged to her. When Khaledi finally looked up, his face did something complicated. Guilt? Yes. But underneath it, something that looked almost like relief. Like a man who had been carrying a heavy bag and had just been told he could finally put it down. Demi said her name. Zara. But Zara's mouth had stopped working. Her feet had stopped working. The only part of her body that seemed to be functioning was her chest, rising, falling, rising, falling, because somewhere beneath the shock, her body had decided that breathing was still worth doing. The wedding invitations were on the kitchen counter. She had seen them on her way in. Cream envelopes, gold ink, Zara and Khaled. With joy, we invite you. She turned around and walked back out the door. Welcome to Wendy Love Stories. Make sure you like, subscribe, and stay with me as we dive into this unforgettable story. 3 weeks before all of it fell apart, Zara was the happiest she had ever been. That's the part that stays with you. Not the betrayal itself, but the happiness that came just before it. How full her life felt. How certain she was that she had finally gotten it right. She was 29, with a small interior design studio in Lagos that had more clients than she could handle. A best friend who made her laugh until her stomach hurt, and a man who still texted her good morning every single day without being asked. She wasn't the kind of woman who needed saving. She was the kind of woman other women looked at and quietly hoped to become. Khaled had come into her life the way good things sometimes do, sideways, when she wasn't looking. A dinner at her mother's place. He had been charming without trying too hard, funny without performing. And when he looked at Zara across the table that first night, she felt seen in a way that was almost uncomfortable, like he had found something in her she hadn't put on display. They dated for 2 years before he proposed. He did it quietly, no crowd, no cameras, just the two of them on the balcony of a small hotel in Accra, the city glittering below, a ring that was simple and perfect and exactly her. She said yes before he finished the sentence. Her friends lost their minds. Her Instagram nearly broke. Even women who barely knew her were sliding into her DMs with heart emojis and congratulations, like her happiness was a thing they wanted to be near. And Demi, her mother, was everywhere. Flying in from Abuja every other weekend, sitting at the kitchen table with tea and opinions about centerpieces. Laughing with Khaled about things Zara hadn't told her. That should have registered. It didn't. Because Demi had always been like that, magnetic, warm, the kind of woman who made every room feel like a party. People loved her. Zara loved her most of all. She was a good mother, Zara had told people, more times than she could count. She raised me alone. She gave up a lot. 3 weeks before everything collapsed, Zara was sitting in her studio going over fabric swatches, humming to herself, her engagement ring catching the light every time she moved her hand. She remembers thinking, just briefly, just for a second, that she had never felt this safe before. She held on to that feeling. She had no idea it was already gone. Colade Brema was the kind of man who made things look easy. Not in an arrogant way. That was the thing. Arrogance you can spot from across a room. It has a smell to it. Colade was different. He carried himself like someone who had worked hard, arrived quietly, and had nothing left to prove. He owned a logistics company with offices in 3 cities. He dressed well but not flashy. He remembered things. Your coffee order. The name of your sister's dog. The small offhand comment you made 2 weeks ago that you'd already forgotten saying. He made you feel like the most interesting person in the room without ever making a show of it. Zara had not been looking for anyone that night at her mother's dinner. She had come tired, in a dress she almost didn't bother to change into, planning to eat quickly and leave early. Instead, she stayed 3 hours longer than she meant to, talking to this man across a table full of half-empty wine glasses, and when she got home, she sat on the edge of her bed and thought, "Oh, that's what that feels like." He pursued her the right way. Not desperately, not arrogantly, just steadily. A message here. Yin, a suggestion for a place he thought she'd like. He showed up when he said he would. He listened when she talked about work, asked follow-up questions, treated her ambitions like they were as serious as his own. After a string of men who had made her feel like too much or not enough, Kaladi felt like exhaling. Her friends approved within the first month. Her colleagues approved after meeting him once. Even her most skeptical girlfriend, Adais, who had a personal policy against trusting men in fitted shirts, pulled Zara aside at a birthday party and whispered, "He's different. Don't mess it up." Zara laughed. She wasn't planning to, but here is what she knows now, looking back with the awful clarity that only comes after everything breaks. There were signs. Small ones. In the kind that don't look like signs at the time because you're too busy being happy to hold them up to the light. He never liked talking about the future beyond the wedding. The wedding itself he could discuss. Venue, guest list, honeymoon options. But after the wedding, the years ahead, the life they were building, he'd smile and say, "We'll figure it out," and change the subject so smoothly you almost didn't notice he'd done it. He was unusually close to Demi. At the time, Zara found it sweet. He called her mama within 6 months. He brought her things from his travels without being asked, a scarf from Nairobi, chocolates from Dubai. Demi lit up around him in a way that Zara read as approval. She was so grateful for it. Her mother had never warmed to anyone that fast. And sometimes, when Zara asked a direct question, "Are you happy? Do you see this working long term?" he would look at her with so much warmth that she forgot she was waiting for an answer. She mistook tenderness for honesty. That was the crack she never saw. Demi Osi was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone feel chosen. She had this gift, or maybe it was a skill, Zara understands the difference now, of making whoever she was speaking to feel like the only person worth speaking to. She asked questions that felt personal. She laughed at the right moments. She touched your arm when she wanted you to feel close to her, and you did, every time, because the warmth felt so real you never thought to question where it was coming from. Zara had grown up inside that warmth. It was the only home she had ever known. Her father, Emmanuel, died when Zara was 6. A brief illness. Fast and merciless. What she remembers of him is mostly feeling, large hands, a low voice, the specific smell of his jacket. After he was gone, it was just the two of them. Demi and Zara against the world. That was the story they told each other, and Zara believed it completely. Demi worked hard. That part was true. She built a small catering business from almost nothing, kept Zara in a decent school, made sure there was always food and always light. Zara grew up watching her mother move through difficulty with a kind of effortless grace, and she decided early that Demi was the strongest woman she would ever know. What she didn't have the eyes to see, not then, was the pattern underneath all of it. Demi did not struggle alone. She was never without a man who could help carry the weight, and the men were always carefully selected. Not for love, for leverage. There was the landlord who suddenly never raised their rent. The school administrator who ensured Zara's scholarship application moved smoothly to the top. The business partner who invested just when the catering company needed it most. Each man believed he had chosen Demi. None of them understood that she had chosen him first, and for reasons he would never fully see. Zara's aunt tried to tell her once. They were at a family gathering, and the woman had leaned in with palm wine on her breath and said, "Your mother is brilliant, but watch who she gets close to and why." Zara had smiled politely and walked away. She was 22 and loyal in the way only daughters can be, with a fierceness that had no room for doubt. Adiz tried a different way, softer. "I just think your mum likes being around Koladi a lot." Zara had laughed it off. She's excited about the wedding. Looking back now, she can take every warm memory and hold it differently. The way Demi insisted on being the one to introduce Khaled at that first dinner, she had framed it as a favor to a business contact. The weekend trips she invited herself on under the cover of wedding planning. The way she always sat beside him at family gatherings, never across. The private jokes that appeared between them, small and easy, the way private jokes only appear between people who have been talking when no one else is listening. Demi never stopped being a good mother. She simply never let that get in the way of what she wanted. It started the weekend they met. Zara would piece this together later. Sitting on the floor of her studio at 2 a.m. with a glass of water she kept forgetting to drink. Reconstructing 8 months of her life, the way you reconstruct a crime scene. Slowly, painfully, looking for the moment everything went wrong and finding it much earlier than you expected. The dinner at Demi's house. The one where Khaled had seemed so natural, so at ease, so perfectly comfortable in a home he was supposedly visiting for the first time. Zara had read that comfort as good character. It was actually familiarity. They had met 2 weeks before. She found the WhatsApp messages later. The timestamps were quiet and damning, and the dinner had been Demi's idea from the beginning. Not to introduce a business contact to her daughter. To introduce a man she was already pursuing to a situation that gave her cover. Zara was the cover. She has to sit with that for a moment every time it comes back to her. She was not the target of the story. She was the story's disguise. The timeline, once she had it, was almost architectural in how carefully it had been built. While Zara was falling in love across dinner tables and balconies in Accra, Demi and Khaled were building something else entirely in the spaces between. Early morning phone calls Khaled took in the bathroom. A weekend in Port Harcourt that Khaled said was work. Demi had told Zara she was visiting an old friend in the East that same weekend. The conference in London that Khaled attended alone, where someone who knew Demi spotted her in the hotel lobby and mentioned it casually months later, not realizing what they were handing Zara. She had filed it away as coincidence. People travel. Lagos is small. The world is smaller. Every photograph from that period now looks different. There is one, Zara's favorite, the one she used as her phone wallpaper for months, of the 3 of them at a garden party. Zara is laughing at something off camera. Kolede has his arm around her. Demi is beside him, smiling at the lens. It looked like family. It looked like love. What it actually was 2 people who had just spent a Thursday afternoon together standing either side of the woman who made their arrangement possible. The warmth was real, in its own terrible way. Kolade did love Zara, she believes that. Some version of it. But love, she has learned, does not automatically make a person honest. Sometimes it just makes the lying more elaborate. And Demi, her mother, who had held her through every heartbreak, Ichin who had sat on the edge of her bed and told her she deserved the best, Demi had looked her daughter in the eye across 8 months of Sunday lunches and said nothing. Smiled through the wedding planning, admired the dress, offered opinions on flower arrangements for a celebration she knew, the entire time, would never happen. 8 months. Every single day, a choice. Every single day, the same answer. She almost didn't go home. That's the thing she thinks about sometimes. How close she came to stopping at the mall first. How Adiz had texted asking if she wanted to grab food after the brunch. How a different version of her afternoon could have delayed everything by 2 hours and changed what she walked into entirely. But she had a headache. The brunch had run long and loud, and all she wanted was her couch, her slippers, Mishi, and an hour of silence before Kolede came back from wherever he had said he was going. She couldn't remember now what he had told her. She hadn't been paying close attention. She trusted him the way you trust the floor beneath your feet, without thinking about it, because it has never once given you a reason to. She parked. She took the elevator. The hallway was quiet in the way her building always was on Saturday afternoons, everyone either out or napping, the whole floor wrapped in a heavy weekend stillness. The door was open. Not wide open, just slightly, an inch or two, the latch not fully caught. She remembered thinking that was strange. Kolade was careful about things like that. Security, locks, closed doors. It was one of his habits. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The perfume hit her first. Then the sounds, low, muffled. He coming from the direction of the bedroom. Her bedroom. Their bedroom. The one with the cream curtains she had spent 3 weekends choosing. She has tried since to explain what happened to her body in those seconds. It wasn't shock exactly, not the loud, crashing kind. It was more like a slow draining, like someone had reached in and quietly turned something off. Her hands stopped feeling like her hands. The keys in her palm became abstract objects. She walked toward the bedroom door the way you walk toward something in a dream, certain of what's coming, unable to stop, moving anyway. She saw them. She stood there for what felt like a very long time but was probably no more than 5 seconds. Long enough to understand everything. Long enough for the image to settle somewhere deep in her chest where it would live for a very long time. Then she turned around, walked back through the apartment, picked up her bag from where she had dropped it by the door, and left. She drove for 3 hours. No destination, no music, no phone calls. Just the Lagos traffic, and the afternoon sun burning orange through the windscreen, and Zara behind the wheel with her hands steady and her mind doing something she couldn't quite name, not thinking, not feeling, just processing. Like a system rebooting after a crash, running through files slowly, making sure it understood what had just happened before it decided what to do about it. She cried once, briefly, at a red light on the island. Then she stopped. By the time she parked outside a Daisy's building as the sun went down, something had shifted inside her. The part of her that wanted to collapse had gone quiet. Something else had taken its place. Something cooler, steadier. Something that already knew exactly what came next. She called them both the next morning, not separately, together. One message in the group chat that the 3 of them had shared for wedding logistics, the one with the little church bell emoji Demi had insisted on adding. The message said, "Come to the apartment at 11. Both of you. Please don't be late." She had spent the night at a Daisy's, not sleeping, not crying, just sitting at the kitchen table while a Daisy made tea she didn't drink, and said very little, which was exactly what Zara needed. By 4 in the morning, she had made every decision there was to make. By 6, she had showered, dressed, and was ready. She was home and seated by 10:30. They arrived together. That told her everything she needed to know about how frightened they were, that they had called each other first, that they had decided to face her as a unit, that even now their instinct was to manage her rather than meet her. Kolade's jaw was tight. Demi's eyes were doing the thing they did when she was calculating, moving just slightly too fast, reading the room, looking for the angle. Zara gestured to the sofa. They sat. She did not sit. She stood by the window with her arms loose at her sides and her voice completely level and began to speak. She told them she knew everything. Not just yesterday. Everything. The timeline. The trips. The Thursday afternoons. The London hotel. She watched Kalade's face move through several expressions and finally settle on something that looked like shame. Demi's face barely moved at all, which was its own kind of answer. Then Zara picked up the folder from the coffee table. She had spent months, quietly, working with a lawyer friend after noticing irregularities in the account her late father had left in both their names. She had said nothing, waiting until she had everything she needed. The folder contained the full paper trail, transfers, dates, amounts. documenting years of Demi quietly moving money that belonged to Zara into accounts that belonged to Demi. She slid it across the table without a word. She watched her mother look down at it. She watched the calculation finally stop. Then she took the engagement ring from her pocket and placed it gently in front of Colade. She didn't throw it. She didn't make a speech about it. She simply set it down, the way you set down something you've been carrying too long. She said, "I forgive you both." She let that sit for a moment. Then she said, "I need you to understand that this forgiveness is not for you. It is not a kindness I'm offering. It is something I'm taking back for myself, because I refuse to spend one more day of my life carrying the weight of what you chose to do. That weight belongs to you now. I'm done holding it." Khaled opened his mouth. She raised one hand, gently, and he closed it again. Demi said nothing. For possibly the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. Zara picked up her bag, walked to the door, and left them sitting in the apartment that used to be her future. She booked the flight that same evening. No announcement. No long conversation with Daisy about whether it was the right decision. No calling her aunt. No posting anything. No waiting for someone to tell her it was okay. She sat on the edge of the bed in Daisy's guest room with her laptop open and her heart doing something strange, not breaking, not soaring, just beating steadily, like it was reminding her it was still there, and she searched for the next available one-way flight to Lisbon. One way. She had almost typed return. Her fingers had moved toward it out of habit, out of the lifelong instinct to always leave herself an exit plan, to never fully commit to a direction in case someone needed her to turn back. She stopped. She deleted it. She typed one way and held the feeling of that for a moment before she clicked confirm. Lisbon had lived in the back of her mind for 6 years. A magazine article she had read at a salon, a photograph of terracotta rooftops above a silver river, a sentence she had underlined in someone else's travel journal. The city feels like it was built for people who needed to start again. She had mentioned it to Colady once, early in their relationship, said she had always wanted to spend real time there. Not a weekend, but weeks. Maybe months. He had smiled and said someday, and she had filed it under the long list of things she was waiting for permission to want. She packed one bag. This was perhaps the most radical thing she had ever done. Not the confrontation, not the legal document, not even the forgiveness. The one bag. Because Zara had always overpacked. For weekend trips, for one-night stays, for every journey she had ever taken. Packing light had always felt like a risk, like she was leaving herself unprepared for something. Now she stood in front of Daisy's guest wardrobe and chose only what she actually needed, and everything she left behind felt intentional. She told Daisy the morning of the flight. Not to ask permission, just because Daisy deserved to know, and because she was the only person in Zara's life who had earned the truth without conditions. Adais had looked at her for a long moment, and then simply said, "Okay, send me your address when you land. No drama." "No, are you sure? Just faith. Clean and simple." On the plane, somewhere over the Atlantic, Zara finally let herself feel all of it at once. The grief came first, real and heavy, the kind that has nothing to do with weakness and everything to do with having genuinely loved something. She had loved Colade. She had loved her mother. Those feelings didn't disappear because the people turned out to be different from who she believed them to be. The loss was real. She let it be real. Then, underneath it, quieter but unmistakable, relief. Not happiness yet. Not even close. But the particular lightness that comes when you stop pretending. When you put down a version of your life that was never truly yours and feel, for the first time in longer than you can remember, the strange and terrifying freedom of your own two empty hands. She pressed her forehead against the cold window. Below her, somewhere, was everything she was leaving. Ahead, still invisible, was everything else. 6 months later, Zara's life no longer looked like something she had borrowed from somebody else. It was hers. Morning in Lisbon came softly through tall windows and painted her apartment in gold. The city moved at a different speed, and little by little she had learned how to move with it. She woke to the sound of trams, church bells, footsteps below her window, and for the first time in a long time, none of it felt heavy. Her hands were busy again, but with the right things now. Sketches, stones, metal, designs that had once lived only in the back of her mind. What started as a distraction became a small jewelry brand with real orders, real attention, real promise. Pieces shaped like rebirth. Pieces inspired by fracture lines and healing. Women she had never met were wearing her work and writing to tell her it made them feel strong. She read every message slowly. There were still hard days. Grief did not leave all at once. Some mornings it returned without knocking. A song in a cafe. A mother and daughter laughing on a sidewalk. A man reaching for a woman's hand. But even the pain had changed. It no longer owned her. It passed through, and she let it. Then she kept going. Back in Lagos, the fire she had walked away from finished burning on its own. Demi and Kolade did not last a month. Once Zara was gone, there was nothing left to hide behind. No wedding to plan, no daughter to use as cover. No polished version of events to perform for other people. What had looked exciting in secrecy became ugly in daylight. Kolade saw quickly what Zara had been too loyal to see for years. Demi did not want love. She wanted access, position, advantage. The same hunger that had taken from her daughter turned on him next, sharp and unsentimental. The charm remained, but the mask slipped. Their fights became public. Then embarrassing. Then impossible to ignore. People talked. Of course they did. The man once admired for having everything was now the man who lost it in the most humiliating way possible. Friends pulled away. Business associates became polite but distant. His name still opened doors, but not with the same warmth. Shame has a way of arriving before a person does. And Demi, who had always known how to keep herself surrounded, found herself facing the one thing she had outrun her whole life: emptiness, no daughter, no fiancé, no audience left to impress. And Zara, oceans away, sat on a terrace above the Tagus River one evening with a glass of wine in front of her and the sky turning pink over the water. She took one photo. Nothing dramatic. Just the glass, the light, the view, the stillness. Then she posted it. The caption was simple: "Gratitude for the heartbreak that set me free." Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? Share your thoughts in the comments. If Zara's strength moved you, like, comment, and subscribe to Wendy Love Stories for more unforgettable stories of betrayal, healing, and choosing yourself.